I want you to understand something very clearly before we go any further. Wealth is not mysterious. It is not reserved for geniuses. It is not locked behind secret knowledge. And it is not primarily created by earning more money. If that were true, doctors, lawyers, executives, and professional athletes would all be wealthy for life. But they're not. Many of them earn enormous incomes and still end up stressed, indebted, and financially dependent well into old age. So the real question isn't, how do I make more money? The real question is, why do so many people who make good money still stay poor? After spending nearly a century observing human behavior around money, I can tell you the answer in one sentence. Most people don't lose wealth in one big mistake. They destroy it slowly through normal, socially approved spending. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because nothing feels wrong while it's happening. No alarms go off. No warnings appear. No one pulls you aside and says, this decision will cost you millions. Instead, you're praised for it. You're congratulated on the new car, complimented on the big house, admired for the vacation photos, seen as successful. And all the while, the foundation of your financial future is being quietly eaten away. Not by emergencies, not by bad luck, but by choices you were taught to believe were smart. That's the tragedy of modern wealth destruction. People don't fail because they're reckless. They fail because they're obedient. They follow the script. Go to school, get a job, upgrade your lifestyle as your income increases. Buy what everyone else buys. Finance what you can't afford yet. Assume it will all work out later. Later rarely comes. And by the time people realize what's happened, the math is no longer on their side. Today, we are going to dismantle that script. Not emotionally, not ideologically, but mathematically, because math doesn't care about your feelings, doesn't care about your intentions, and it doesn't care about social norms. Math only cares about inputs and outcomes. And the outcomes of these 5 purchases are devastating. Wealth is built more by avoidance than action. One of the greatest misconceptions about wealth is that it's created by doing more hustling, more grinding, more risk-taking, more complexity. In reality, most great fortunes are built by not doing certain things, not upgrading when everyone else does, not borrowing when credit is offered, not consuming simply because consumption is encouraged. The truly wealthy are not reckless optimists. They are disciplined pessimists. They constantly ask, what could go wrong with this decision over 20 or 30 years? Most people only ask, can I afford the payment? That single difference in thinking explains almost everything. Number 1, revisited, new cars. Why this one decision alone keeps millions of people broke. Let's go deeper than before. A new car is not just a bad purchase. It is a habit-forming financial poison. Because once you buy one, it resets your expectations. The smooth ride, the quiet cabin, the upgraded features, suddenly older cars feel unacceptable. So when it's time to replace it, you don't go backward. You go sideways or upward. And just like that, you've locked yourself into a lifetime of depreciation cycle. Here's what most people never calculate. It's not one $30,000 loss. It's a repeating loss that compounds in reverse. Every dollar you send to a depreciating asset is a dollar that cannot compound for you. And compounding is everything. If you invest $30,000 once, it grows. If you destroy $30,000 repeatedly, you don't just lose that money, you lose what it could have become. This is the silent killer. People don't feel poor while driving a new car. They feel successful. That's why this trap works so well. A new car disguises wealth destruction as achievement. Why financing magnifies the damage. Financing doesn't just add interest. It extends the illusion. Monthly payments make expensive decisions feel manageable. But manageable does not mean intelligent. A $754 payment doesn't feel like $45,000. It feels like a subscription. And modern consumer culture thrives on subscriptions. Everything is designed to be affordable per month because that's how people stop thinking in totals. Wealthy people think in totals. Poor people think in payments. That difference alone determines outcomes. Status is the most expensive drug ever invented. Cars are not about transportation anymore. They are about signaling. Signaling success. Signaling competence. Signaling belonging. But signaling is expensive. And here's the cruel irony. The people you are signaling to are often just as financially insecure as you are. So you're all destroying your futures together, applauding one another along the way. Real wealth does not require validation. It requires patience. Number 2, expanded, too much house. How dream homes become financial prisons. Housing is where wealth goes to die quietly. Not because homes are inherently bad, but because people overestimate what a home does for them financially. A primary residence is not an investment in the traditional sense. It does not generate income. It consumes cash. It requires constant maintenance. It locks capital in an illiquid form. Yet people treat it like a badge of success. The bigger the house, the more successful they believe they look. But houses don't care about your ego. They care about taxes, repairs, insurance, utilities, upgrades, and time. Every extra square foot costs you money forever, and banks are very good at encouraging this behavior. They stretch your approval just enough to keep you dependent, because dependency is profitable. The opportunity cost of overbuying, let's say 2 people earn the same income. One buys a modest home, the other buys the maximum home. The second person doesn't just spend more on the mortgage. They spend more on property taxes, insurance, maintenance, furniture, landscaping, repairs, utilities, and most importantly, they lose flexibility. They can't invest aggressively. They can't take risks. They can't survive income interruptions easily. Their house owns them. The first person, meanwhile, quietly builds assets. 30 years later, the difference isn't subtle. It's generational. Why most people ignore this advice? Because moderation is boring. Because no one applauds restraint. Because social comparison is louder than long-term math. And because delayed gratification feels like deprivation until the results arrive. The silent traps that keep people consuming even when they know better. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people already know deep down that buying new cars, oversized houses, constant upgrades, and luxury experiences isn't making them wealthier. They feel the pressure every month. They see the bank balance. They feel the anxiety. And yet they keep spending. So this is not a knowledge problem. It's a psychological problem. Wealth is not destroyed by ignorance. It's destroyed by emotion, identity, and social pressure. And unless you understand those forces, you will always feel like you're bad with money, when in reality, you are reacting exactly how the system trained you to react. Let's dismantle that system. Number 3, deep dive. Furniture, decor, and the illusion of adulthood. Furniture seems harmless. It doesn't scream luxury. It doesn't feel reckless. It feels responsible. You move into a new place and immediately feel pressure to set it up properly. A couch, a dining table, a bed frame, matching nightstands, a rug to tie the room together, artwork so the walls don't look empty. None of this feels extravagant. But here's the reality most people miss. Furniture spending isn't about function. It's about identity. People don't buy furniture because they need to sit or sleep. They buy furniture because they want their home to say something about who they are. Successful, established, put together, adult. And furniture stores understand this perfectly. That's why they don't sell chairs. They sell lifestyles. They show you fully staged rooms, not individual pieces. They encourage you to buy sets, not what you actually need. They normalize furnishing an entire home at once, often on credit. That's the trap, because the moment you finance furniture, you've crossed a dangerous line. You are now paying interest on objects that are losing value while you sit on them. That is the opposite of wealth building, the real cost of just making the place nice. Let's slow the math down. A typical middle-class household today can easily spend $2,000, $3,000 on a couch, $3,000, $5,000 on a dining set, $4,000, $6,000 on bedroom furniture, $5,000 plus on decor, rugs, lighting, and accessories. Without realizing it, they've crossed $25,000, $40,000. And what did they buy? Objects that do not generate income, do not appreciate, do not compound, do not improve earning power. Now compare that to someone who buys used, buys slowly, and buys only what's needed. They furnish the same functional home for $8,000, $12,000. The difference, $20,000 or more, doesn't just sit there. It grows. At 10% over 30 years, that single decision becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars. From couches, this is not extreme frugality. This is delayed consumption. And delayed consumption is the foundation of wealth. Why people feel uncomfortable buying used. Because used items force you to confront reality. They remind you that you don't need perfection. You don't need novelty. You don't need approval. And that discomfort is exactly why used goods are such powerful wealth tools. Every time you choose function over appearance, you strengthen the habit that creates financial independence. Wealthy people aren't immune to desire. They've just trained themselves not to obey it automatically. Number 4, deep dive. Technology, dopamine, and upgrade addiction. Technology is the most sophisticated wealth extractor ever created. Not because devices are expensive, but because they are designed to make you dissatisfied with what already works. Every upgrade cycle follows the same pattern. You buy something that works perfectly. Marketing reframes it as outdated. New features are presented as necessities. Social pressure reinforces the upgrade. You spend money again. And here's the key insight. Most upgrades do not meaningfully improve your life or productivity. They improve novelty. And novelty is addictive. Why tech feels different from other spending. People don't feel guilty upgrading technology because it's framed as staying current, being efficient, keeping up with the world. But in reality, most people use phones at 10% of their capability, laptops far below performance limits, TVs far beyond what their eyes need. The upgrade is emotional, not functional. And emotional upgrades are always expensive. The compounding damage of small tech decisions. Let's say someone spends $1,200 on a phone every 2 years, $2,000 on a laptop every 4 years, $1,500 on gadgets and accessories over time. That's easily $1,000 per year averaged out. Most people don't notice because it's fragmented. But invest that $1,000 per year over 40 years, you're looking at well over $1 million, not from one big sacrifice, from refusing to chase upgrades. This is the pattern you must understand. Wealth is lost in increments that feel harmless. That's why almost no one stops. Why wealthy people see technology differently. Wealthy people ask one question before upgrading. Does this meaningfully increase my earning power or effectiveness? If the answer is no, they wait. They don't care about being early adopters. They care about being long-term winners. They use technology as a tool, not as entertainment, identity, or distraction. That distinction alone separates outcomes dramatically. Number 5, deep dive, luxury experiences, and the myth of making memories. This is the most emotionally defended category of spending because people don't just justify it financially, they justify it morally. You only live once. Memories matter. I don't want to miss out. And they're right, memories do matter. But debt-funded luxury is not memory creation. It's future theft. Experiences are marketed as meaning. Luxury travel is sold as self-discovery, healing, reward, fulfillment. But price does not equal meaning. And expensive experiences do not guarantee happiness. They guarantee expense. The real cost of repeated luxury, one $10,000 vacation feels manageable. 2 per year feels deserved. 30 years later, that pattern has quietly consumed. Hundreds of thousands in cash, millions in lost compounding. And the cruel irony, the memories fade. The lost wealth does not. Affordable experiences versus expensive escapes. Affordable experiences strengthen relationships, encourage creativity, build resilience. Luxury experiences often create comparison, often increase lifestyle expectations, often lead to repeated spending. Wealthy people still enjoy life. They just don't outsource joy to price tags. The uncomfortable truth about discipline. Discipline feels like deprivation in the short term. Freedom feels like deprivation to people who never learned restraint. That's why most people reject this path. They don't want to feel different. They don't want to feel behind. They don't want to feel judged. But the cost of fitting in is permanent financial stress. The reward for standing apart is freedom. the core principle tying all five together. Every wealth-destroying purchase shares one thing in common. It prioritizes immediate identity reinforcement over long-term financial leverage. Cars say who you are. Houses say who you've become. Furniture says how put together you are. Technology says how current you are. Luxury experiences say how successful your life looks. Wealth doesn't care how your life looks. It cares how your money behaves over decades, how wealthy people think differently, and how you can adopt it permanently. By now, you understand the mechanics. You understand the math. You understand the five purchases that quietly destroy wealth. You understand how compounding works, both for you and against you. So the final question is this. If the logic is so clear, if the numbers are so undeniable, why do so few people actually change? The answer is uncomfortable, but simple. Because wealth is not primarily a financial problem. It's an identity problem. People don't spend money because they're careless. They spend money because spending reinforces who they believe they are or who they're afraid they're not. To build real wealth, you must change the role money plays in your identity. Not temporarily, not through willpower alone, but permanently. That's what this final part is about. The most important shift from consumer to owner. Most people live their entire lives as consumers. They consume cars, homes, furniture, technology, experiences. Even their financial goals are framed around consumption. I want enough money to buy what I want. I want to enjoy life. I want a nice lifestyle. Wealthy people frame life differently. They see themselves as owners first, owners of capital, cash, flow, time, optionality. They do not ask, what can I buy with this money? They ask, what can this money become if I leave it alone? That single question changes everything, because once you think like an owner, spending becomes a decision with consequences, not an emotional reflex. Why willpower fails and systems win. Most people try to fix money problems with willpower. They promise themselves, I'll be better next month. I'll cut back after this purchase. I deserve this right now. Willpower always loses to habit. Wealthy people don't rely on willpower. They build systems that make bad decisions inconvenient and good decisions automatic. They automate investing, limit exposure to temptation, delay purchases by default, reduce friction for saving, increase friction for spending. This isn't discipline, it's design, the rule of permanent delay. One of the simplest and most powerful wealth habits is this: never buy immediately. Wealthy people delay everything, not because they can't afford it, but because delay separates desire from decision. Most wants disappear with time. That new car, that gadget, that impulse trip, give it 30 days. If it still matters, evaluate it logically. If it doesn't, you just save thousands. Delay is the filter that protects wealth. The concept of future ownership. Here is a mental exercise wealthy people use often without realizing it. Before spending money, they imagine the future version of that money. They don't see $10,000 as a vacation. They see $10,000 times 30 years. $10,000 times compounding. $10,000 buying freedom later. So the question becomes, is this purchase worth trading my future freedom for? Sometimes the answer is yes, but most of the time it isn't. And once you internalize that trade-off, reckless spending becomes emotionally uncomfortable, not exciting. Why living below your means is misunderstood. Living below your means does not mean living poorly. It means living deliberately. It means choosing long-term power over short-term pleasure. Most people hear below your means and imagine deprivation. Wealthy people hear below your means and imagine leverage. Leverage over employers, markets, time, stress. Money saved is not money lost. Money saved is money waiting to work. The lie of lifestyle balance. People are constantly told they need balance. Spend now, save later. Enjoy life equally at every stage. That sounds reasonable, but it ignores reality. Life is not symmetrical. Energy declines. Time compresses. Options narrow. The years when discipline is easiest are the years when pleasure is least expensive. The years when pleasure is most expensive are the years when discipline is hardest. Wealthy people front-load discipline so they can backload freedom. Most people do the opposite and pay the price. The moment most people never recover from. There is a moment in life when financial paths diverge. It usually happens quietly. A raise, a promotion, a career milestone. One person upgrades everything. Bigger house, better car, more spending. The other person upgrades nothing except investments. From that moment on, the gap widens every year. Not because one is smarter, because one understands restraint, why appearing successful is the most expensive goal you can have. Looking rich is easy. Being rich is quiet. Looking rich requires constant spending. Being rich requires patience. And here's the harsh truth. People who judge you for modest choices are usually trapped themselves. They need validation because they're insecure about their own finances. You do not need approval from people who haven't built what you want. Freedom is the real luxury. True luxury is not first-class seats, designer labels, expensive homes. True luxury is saying no, walking away, taking time, sleeping well, not needing permission. And that luxury is only available to people who protect their capital early. What happens when you stop buying the 5 things? Something surprising happens. Your life doesn't shrink, it expands. Stress decreases, clarity increases, options multiply work. Confidence grows. You stop fearing emergencies. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing raises to survive. Money becomes a tool, not a leash. The final truth about getting rich. Getting rich is not about brilliance. It's about behavior repeated long enough for math to work. No genius required. No luck required. No shortcuts required. Just consistency. Just restraint. Just time. Your commitment starting now. So here is the commitment I'm asking you to make. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now, look at your life honestly. Ask yourself, which of the 5 things am I buying? Which ones are costing me my future? Then stop. Not gradually. Not emotionally. But deliberately redirect that money into investments, into assets, into ownership. Do this for 10 years and your life changes. Do it for 20 years and your family changes. Do it for 30 years and generations change. Closing message. The secret to wealth has never been hidden. It has always been ignored. Stop buying what destroys wealth. Start buying what builds it. That's the path. That's the formula. That's how real wealth is built. Thank you for listening. If this message helped you think differently about money, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the sooner people stop buying the wrong things, the sooner they can start buying their freedom. You've got this.